whenever you learn, for example, something that is so like lean manufacturing or Six Sigma, is not rocket science, but you still need to make it happen. And then how do you make it happen? Very few companies are successful using the tools, but the tools are there. The tools were since 1950, and still not everybody's successful. But why? Because they don't think how.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Allied Advisors Podcast, the podcast for mid-market manufacturers looking to scale operations and improve that ever-important bottom line. Joining us today is Dr. Huri Mendoza, a global operations executive who has spent more than 2 decades turning around and scaling manufacturing organizations across the automotive and nutrition sectors. Holding a doctorate in business management from Swiss International University in Zurich, Huri has led operations and complex product launches on the ground in Germany, the United States, Mexico, Brazil, Romania, China, India, and Lithuania. Most recently as Director of Operations with the private equity firm Aequita, and before that in senior global roles at Balchem and FORVIA, where he oversaw production capacity across hundreds of lines and $100 million plus in annual capital investment. A Six Sigma black belt and lifelong champion of continuous improvement, he's known for building cultures of operational excellence to deliver real results. Think worldwide programs that saved more than $500 million and drove double-digit annual productivity gains while mentoring the teams that make it stick. He's an award-winning leader, a board advisor to an AI software startup, and speaks 5 languages. And today he's here to share how disciplined execution, lean thinking, and people-first approach turn struggling operations into high performers. Dr. Mendoza, really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. So I never heard about myself like that. But this is, it brings a lot of energy. Yeah, positive energy. So thank you very much for
You've
having
had
me.
quite the career, and I can't wait to dig into this thing with you, because I think you have a lot that you can share with our listeners, and I hope at the end of this episode that they all will agree. But let's jump right into it. You know, at Aequita, you were, am I saying that right, by the way? Is it Aequita?
Aequita, yeah, it's
Aequita.
from Latin.
Yeah, so at Aequita, you were brought in to turn around a tier 1 automotive supplier. You reduced the manufacturing footprint by 50% and eliminated 20% of non-value added activities. When you walk into an underperforming operation, where do you actually start? Where are the first things you look, or what are the first things you look at? And how do you tell a quick win from a change that's going to take, 6 months or a year or more?
Yeah, very good question. So when you join a company that is struggling, so there is a lot of opportunities. Not everybody sees these opportunities. What I typically do is I observe a lot. I learned this in my past. I learned directly from Japanese people to go to the shop floor and just observe. Spend hours in the shop. Talk to the people. Talk to the operators. So the people that is handling the material, and observe what they do, how they are struggling, or if they are not struggling, if they are really performing value-added activities, non-value-added activities. And one thing that when I joined the company, it was very clear for the team. They said this area has a problem, but we don't know what to do. We have ideas, and also I came with ideas right away, and my ideas were the same ones that they had, so there was nothing new. But the ideas required a lot of investment, and so I spent a little bit more of time, and I come to the conclusion. So there is a lot of inventory. So they are building for inventory, a lot of overproduction, and then once you have, so the product was quite large. So then you use a lot of space. So and then you spend time just looking for parts, because they are somewhere in a valley of racks with parts. And then I come to the conclusion. So this is the first thing that I'm going to try to do, and I move the parts closer. So I did a mini value stream map. and I said, I'm going to reduce this. I'm going to eliminate this process. So I'm going to have a little bit of one-piece flow. Um, I am a strong believer in one-piece flow, but also I believe that not every process functions with one-piece flow. So you need to find the right one. But for most of them, it really works, or you can make an adaptation of it. So just by cutting the amount of racks that they were allowed to have and the amount of space and moving the final operation closer to it was a paint booth, it was a paint line, just moving it closer. Didn't have People didn't have a space where to put more racks, so they were like a little bit forced to have the one piece flow. And just by doing that, you reduce a tremendous amount of space because you are not building for inventory. So this one was a little bit I got into the company and I was told this is the problem. And I went with it. But once you go with it, so I dig out my own information. I found my own information. I went, did my own research. By standing in the line, I observed also the other side of the line, which it was not really considered a problematic area. So the loading and offloading. So the loading was like, this is how we always have done it. So don't touch it. I love these words because it's when the processes has been like that in years. That means that continuous improvement has not knocked the door. And yeah, opportunities are there. And um, did some calculations with the team there. So cycle times they were very different. So different products that they ran through the same line. So cycle times, volumes, they were a little bit different. But then I introduced the topic Chaku Chaku. So I divided the process. I make everybody expert in every process. So they had dedicated people. I said, no, we are going to use so we're going to go around. Yeah. So how it goes. So everybody's doing it in different lines, in different paces, and it's not only so heavily physical, also it was mentally challenging. So it was very different. At the beginning, a lot of resistance from everybody, um, as usual, but after some time they got used to it, and then they realized they didn't need so many people, and then that's it. Then reductions are happening. Um, it was so for me, it's about observe processes in the shop floor, learning to see, like the book. So it's not only sitting there and then staring at things, or it's you have to train. So what are you looking for? And that was a success.
Yeah, I think you hit on something really important there is that silent observation piece. I think too often leaders or office folks, they think they know the problems, right, from their perch at the desk, but they don't take the time to go out to the shop floor and go to the Gemba and do that silent observation. I remember during the course of my lean training, we had a TPS for executives course. It was a week-long course, and you were expected to make like 450 improvements in this one little cell, right? This one 10 by 10 workstation. You had to make 400, improvements. And the first thing they asked you to do was go out there for 4 hours and just watch. Don't say anything. You can ask clarifying questions, right? Hey, what is this? But don't make suggestions. Just watch what they do. And then the next 3.5 days you've spent doing small improvements, rapid implementation, rapid testing, right? So you might move a bin from here down to here, uh, just fix it with tape, right? And just try to make some improvements really quickly, and then what worked you would permanently affix it or whatever. But yeah, I think that's such an important piece of continuous improvement for folks like us is shut up, get up from the desk, and go watch and go learn, right? Humble yourself to be able to learn.
Absolutely. Look and look for the information. So the information is there. So there is drawings, there is specifications, there is specifications of the machines. So drag the pencil. It's you need to be out there. You need to look at the information that you have, which data is available, which data do you think that you need, because
Hmm.
data costs money, so it costs time, and time is money. So and then go with ideas. And sometimes ideas are a little bit crazy, but when you explain Chaku Chaku to people that never even hear about it, it's the craziest idea ever. And so and it, it takes time to explain this, to implement this, but once you do it, it works, and it's it's not that crazy once it's implemented.
That's right. That's right. You know, I've had conversations with other lean implementers around 5S, right? And initially, whenever you go out to the floor and you try to do 5S with a team that's never had it, there's a lot of pushback like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you moving things around? But after you've implemented it and after they've lived in an organized world for a little while, then other people around start coming up and saying, hey, when are you coming to my area? When are you going to get my area done? Because they see the benefit of it. And, you know, I think that applies to a lot of lean tools, right? Once people can see the value they deliver, then it's like, oh, okay, well, let's do more. Let's do more. But, you know, you got that initial phase of resistance until you've proven that, hey, this does add value.
This works, yeah, or this
Absolutely.
could work.
Absolutely. Well, you know, Yuri, you told me about tools like a camera-based system that gives you a full-time and motion study in a week instead of months, and machine data platforms that build your dashboards automatically. A lot of mid-market manufacturers assume that kind of AI and digital simulation is only for companies with Forvia-sized budgets. Where would you tell a 50 to $200 million manufacturer to actually start, and what's realistic on a modest budget?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, because when I've been involved in artificial intelligence startup companies for a long time now. So not quite 10 years, but almost, so probably 8 years. Um, and what artificial intelligence is giving you is giving you more data, more ideas, more accurate information, speedy information. It gives you all that, but it doesn't give you execution. Now, to your question, so big companies like Forvia or other big tier ones or OEMs, they have people in hundreds. So not three people doing this job worldwide. So they have people in hundreds doing this job. So when you provide this information, they can touch the ground and run. Now, many of these companies, they already have this information. So it's very difficult to sell these products to companies very large, because what is the value added? But mid-sized companies, they are struggling to get data. So if they want data, they have to ask their people, so take a paper and then start collecting this information, read from a screen, read from a PLC, and then we are ending asking the people that it's supposed to build parts to also make reports and think why this is not working, and then at the end of the day we say why we didn't produce so many parts. Well, because people was busy doing 100 other things.
Mhm.
So this is a very good solution for this company. So it's for these mid-sized companies. Where are you going? What are you going to do with this information? Because it costs money, So it costs money to have AI. The business model usually runs under subscription, so you have a constant payment to do, and the value creation doesn't happen right away, because you need to execute the ideas. You need to know what to do with the information. So once you are executing the ideas, then the value creation, of course, then turns around. You get to an even point. Then you start making money. You start substituting mm, task or people. People is more efficient. You produce more parts, less downtime. So all the normal results of improvements. And this the key here is how much it costs. So in the lower five figures. So as a ballpark, so everything starts with a proof of concept. But you need to see what are you going to save, and you need to have it clear, and who is going to execute. And if you can breach that from the side of the artificial intelligence company and from the side that is a customer, then it it's going to succeed. But if you are expecting that a machine is going to tell you, this screw is loose, and you're expecting a robot to tie it up, it's not going to happen. And that's what also I learned through all these years. So not every customer is a good customer. There is a certain level of maturity for these companies, and you need to know what to do with the information. So I think that mid-sized companies, they have a great opportunity. They need a project manager for it. They need the mindset of continuous improvement. And if you put all these elements, that they are not so rare. So I'm not asking for an alignment of the planets. So it's a very simple understanding of what to do. Then you can match AI features with use cases for time savings and optimization.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right in terms of there's some basic requirements that you've got to have in place before you can look to automate or put any of this technology on top of it. I tell people all the time, if your process is just chaos, if you try to automate it, all you're going to get is more expensive chaos or more chaos, right? You're going to
Yeah,
get more chaos more rapidly. You know, if you really want to be able to take advantage of all of the benefits that automation and this industry 4.0 and now AI can offer, you have to start with a baseline process, right? There has to be some consistency in the way you're performing the work, right? Because that's where AI can really jump in there and help streamline. Once you have a defined workflow, then these tools can be put on top of that and make it so much better. It can find your leaks, right? In terms of where you might be losing some money. It can help streamline it so that you can do it more quickly with less resources. It's great. But if you don't have a standard to start with, it's not going to work. So that's what I tell a lot of these mid-market manufacturers too is let's start with a standard, let's get a standard workflow, and then let's find tools that can automate that standard workflow and make it more efficient.
yeah, you're absolutely right. There is you need to have certain level of maturity. Yeah, it's the same. I'm coming back to the same concept. Something that I repeat quite often is data exists since Henry Ford or before. So it's not that AI is bringing data and then we are all discovering America again. So it's the data was there. Is if you didn't do anything before, you're not going to do anything after. So you need to understand what are you going to do. You need to understand which feature you are trying to get faster and more accurate that is going to help you in your operation. And this is mm, yeah, this is where the tools they can help you quite a lot,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Well, in the pre-meeting, you and I talked, and you mentioned that you built a lean academy where you trained over 10,000 people and ran something like 2,000 improvement projects a year. And you've said the hard part is change management, making the results stick. So many CI programs fizzle out once the consultant or the champion moves on. How do you build a lean culture that actually sustains itself?
That's also excellent question. So and every question that you're placing, we can talk for the next 3 hours. Yeah, training. Um, you need to find the sweet point. So and the companies, they don't have time for training or budget for training. So you cannot turn an organization that is a manufacturing organization into a school. But you need to have certain amount of training. You want to have the people being efficient and create productivity, and for that they need to have certain amount of training. So we work quite heavily creating this material. So identified who is responsible for what. I mean that's key, and I'm going to touch in something that many organizations struggle. So lean manufacturing tools come, and then it comes, how we're planning the production, and then there is a pull system. Yeah, somebody says pull system, and then you have the lean experts trying to implement pull systems, and then the logistics guys or the production planners, they are not even involved. They are not even bought in. So what happens is now you have two running systems. So the traditional one in the ERP, whatever it is, with the flaws and with however, or whether it runs or not, plus another one that is with cards and with the board and so on. So now you have two systems. So the very first thing, and then it was very hurtful, was when I took over this department, is to say, I don't own pool systems. They are owned by logistics. And if logistics ask me to train them, I can train them, but I will not implement. So that's to give you an example. I never heard anybody else doing it. So everybody goes there and then says, pool systems, and we're going to have cards and a Kanban board. And so first we defined who is responsible for whom, for what. We had an LMS, so a learning management system. So then we established this. We established also standards for the training. So we didn't want to have trainings everywhere in the world. So when you have dozens or hundreds of plants, every plant has their own training. So you have people building the same slides over and over and over. So we say, no, we have the standard training, because that's optimization of the resources. Um, then uh, we combine uh, people without experience, and novice people with people that was already trained with experts, and we combine them. So we create situations where people was always learning from experts. So we identified our experts, and then we said, please train others. So train the new ones. You complain people comes and they don't know anything. Well, train them, teach them. Yeah, spend time and tell them what are you expecting to do. Um, we identified for every job description, role, and so on. So what is the learning that we were expecting? So the minimum requirements, those the minimum knowledge, and what is the is? So what every person had, and what is the should. And then there is usually a gap. And then this gap, you take it and then you see it from the other side and says, okay, what training plans we're going to have, what training budget we're going to have, how we're going to close this gap. And we're not going to close the gap in 3 weeks. So we're going to make a plan for months and years and quarters. And so that was the training, because we wanted also to create a learning ladder. So how you can perform in a higher level every quarter. So how can you be better? So one thing is to have 10, 15 years of experience of the same year, or 15 years of experience of different years. And we try to do that. So to have experience, and that you are not the same person, because you got training, because you experience, because you try, you practice, you went to the shop floor, you learn the methods. All these trainings, at the end of the day, we wanted to have improvement measures. So and it we have a quarterly project where we picked our proactive projects. So we divided what is reactive and what is proactive. Reactive projects, they were always out of the production meetings, the daily production meetings. Everyone has a daily production meeting. And then we create a ticketing system, and that's how we divide these topics. The idea was not to fix every problem. The idea was to control the firefighting. So once you control the firefighting, then you have a time in your own people, because it's the same people, to work in proactive projects. So then we divide big projects, Six Sigma projects. So projects that they last months. So launching projects, launching new products or new lines. So these are massive projects and always required the same people. We divide into workshops, and then we have so let's say 100 projects was a good number. 600 workshops per year, lean workshops or small. If it was not lean, but it was always continuous improvement workshops, and there was small measures like, okay, we're going to you refer to something, we're going to change the bean from here to here. So is that come out of the workshop? Maybe, or maybe it was just an idea. But then we capture all these ideas. So we said, so we are going to explain to everybody that all these ideas are improving the bottom line. And then there were thousands of measures. So there was a savings program where we collected all these measures. And for all these, you need training. So if you want to do Six Sigma, then you need to have Six Sigma engineers and green belt and black belt and yellow belt. And if you want to have lean manufacturing, you need to train the tools. If you want to work with um, pull systems, with flow systems, you need to train the people and the people that is actually performing the job, because you want it to perform right. And they need training also how it works in the ERP, how it works in the system, that you do it and you do it right, how you handle deviations. And this culture, so once you build it into a culture, the culture stays. So and runs without you. So I've been out of Forvia for many years, and many things that I did is still remain, because it was not about me doing it. It was about a system taking care that it's maintained through the years and through the time. And sorry.
No, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, yeah. So that's how culture was built. It was taking care of the people, because at the end, it's the biggest asset that any organization has, and to understand what is the expectation of the people. Very concrete. So not just like run and work, make it faster, improve it. That's so generic. So we thought, what does it mean? What does it mean? How can we translate these general statements into concrete measures and to concrete tasks and projects? And this is what we did.
Yeah. Yeah. You said so much there that I think really deserves repeating. Number one is you got to have defined roles and responsibilities. That is always amazing to me, is how many manufacturers don't really have well-defined organizational structures, right? When you look at their org tree, it's just crazy. Different people reporting to different people that doesn't make a lot of sense, and nobody really understands where they stop and somebody else starts. So I think having that RACIC chart filled out, those roles and responsibilities well defined, that is critical. And then having a system in place to help drive these continuous improvement initiatives, which is kind of what you described, and then making sure everybody's got the training and the skill set that they need to be successful implementing these things. So many times, and you mentioned this earlier, so many times companies try to do continuous improvement with the second shift supervisor, and that just doesn't work, because they've got other things to do. They're trying to get parts out the door. You can't make them responsible for writing standards and shipping parts. I mean, that just, one of those things is going to suffer. And we don't want either one of them to suffer. So yeah, I love that answer. I think it's clear that you've got a lot of experience doing this and have run up against the same problems that a lot of us have.
Yeah, one thing, and I just to summarize, and this I learned. So I had these quarterly reviews to define projects, and the most difficult part is not to define what we want to do, is to decide what we are not going to do, because there is always more problems and projects than people.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
this was
right.
the most difficult one,
That
and I had an epiphany whenever I joined the private equity, because there were so many topics. but they were talking about this 100-day um, plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the first 100 days.
the
Yep.
first 100 days, and it's so common. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to call my quarterly review a rolling 100 days because this is at the end what it is. So before the quarter, I do a portfolio planning. I define what I want to do in the quarter. Then I run the quarter, so 90 days, 91 days. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the end of this, I make the evaluation, what happened and not. And they overlap. Yeah, so they overlap, and then you have the 365 days. But then there is a rolling 100 days. And I coined this, and it works so well. Because now people understand what you are trying to do.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to our fractional CI manager program that we have here at Allied Advisors. Same thing. It's a quarterly cadence, right? We're defining projects at the beginning of the quarter, we're executing them throughout the quarter, and then we're summarizing how we did at the end and getting ready to start it again. So, getting on that, you know, timeline of, hey, we're doing projects every 90 days. Just that has, if you do that over the course of time, my goodness, the impact you will have, over a 5 or 10 year stretch, which
That's
sounds
it.
like
That's
a,
where the millions came. You
that's
refer
it.
so all
Yep.
the savings that I achieved, and it's not that I did. So it's me and a group, and
Yep.
the whole organization achieved that.
Yep.
And this is how you get to it.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no silver bullet
Yep.
or
You,
magic wand. That's it. So you need to create these cycles, and the first cycle will run horribly, and then you learn out of it, and
that's
until you
exactly
get it
right.
right.
You're exactly right. Golly, I couldn't have said it better. But early on in your career in Germany, you were telling me that you actually wrote the specs for an entire production line, but you sourced suppliers worldwide, and you were on the hook for validating that the equipment performed the spec. And later, you used digital simulation like FlexSim, so new lines launched on time. For a mid-market manufacturer about to sign off on a big CapEx project, how do you de-risk it so the line actually performs the way the supplier promised?
Another good question, Justin. So when we had these CapEx strategies, um, we had strategies for high cost country, mid cost country, best cost country. So this was the very first thing. What are we doing? So we cannot build a line the same for a country like Germany or the United States or a line for India or Mexico. Different expectation. Now the next level, because it starts, so there is not a simple answer, and again this comes back to there is no silver bullet. There is not like this is the solution. So it's everything that starts to get a matrix and complicate and so on, and how complicated you want it. Yeah, but um, then we had regional solutions. Yeah, so because there are not the same suppliers or vendors in Asia that they are in America or in Europe. So and the brands and so on. So it's different. Even global brands, they don't work like one to one. So then to understand that, so what we have, we create frameworks for writing the specifications to bridging between the product and and the process and where the line was going to be established at the beginning. So that's one thing. Then the use of um, digital solutions, so like flexing. What was so we thought, okay, that was the next step in our maturity journey, and we wanted to implement a digitalization. So we had all these strategies, but now we wanted to know, okay, what happened if we simulate a line? How is going to affect the line itself and the other lines surrounding? Because are you going to add another technician, or you are going to spec the same technician to maintain the two lines? And whenever we simulate this, for example, we learned that sometimes we were asking operators, technicians, or material handlers to walk 8 miles in a shift, and it will never work. So we cannot expect people to run a marathon in a shift. So it's it just doesn't work. So, and it was so much learning out of it. But I think the most value added, and it, it was not the simulation itself, it was the front loading, it was the questions. It's like the simulation asks you how you are going to pack the parts at the end. So what are you going to use? How many parts in a box you are going to put in, or in a tray, or in a bag, or whatever. And then everybody stared around and says, "Oh, we don't know." Uh, And and uh, and these questions, this was the real value added of having these simulations. So not the simulation itself. There was a lot of learning with it. I am so don't get me wrong. So it's a tool, and if you use it right, it will work. So, but um, we learned that through the simulation, through the data in ERP, in MES, we created an optimum solution, the perfect solution. We had questions for design for manufacturing, for design for cost. So we had all these questions before the steel was cut. And where you can still make modifications to the product, to the process, to the interaction of things, that was really the value added. And the result of this, it was not just a file that was stored somewhere in a server. So we transformed this solution because it was always looking for the perfect solution. We transformed this into the future state value stream map. That was the goal because we already defined it. That's the perfection. And and that was it. And when the line was created, and then it was transferred to the place where it was going to be launched and start of production, then you realize all the things that you thought it was, you planned it perfect, and it's not working, or not working as planned, or all the difficulties that you have along the way, and then that becomes the current state. So the value stream map, the current state, and then you start defining the target state level. So in how many iterations you are going to reach this future state. But having an idea how the future state looks like before anything is done, also fantastic value added from the lean perspective. So it's not what is left to get there. So it's to really create an utopic solution to say, this is the perfection. How do we get there?
What I hear you saying is it's not really about the simulation software. It's about defining and answering all of the questions that you need to run a simulation. So if you're a mid-market guy and you don't have, Simio or FlexSim, then what you should do instead is try to force your teams to think through, okay, what information do we need to define in order to launch this production line successfully, right? So packaging, number of target cycle time based on your assumed tack
Right.
time,
Yeah.
right? All of those things is how you really force your team to think through these, each of these processes, so that you end up with a well-defined process that can run. Is that
It's
essentially what you're
exactly
saying?
right.
Yep.
Exactly right. And it's planned for every part, and then you don't do it after the fact. You do it it's a front loading.
Yeah.
What do you
Correct.
want to have?
Yep.
And then there were topics like a label, and a label, I don't know, so 2 by
Mm-hmm.
5.37 whatever, and it's like, okay, the supplier has a 2 by 6. Does it work?
Yep.
Because that is off the shelf.
Yep.
And then they are like, oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
worked. And there were so many simple solutions, but nobody think about it. A designer planned the perfect label for it component, and it never thought what it means for the rest of the system. When you bring all the people together, that's the value add. That's a mid-sized company asking these questions. Then you don't need to place it in a simulation. So simulation will help you, absolutely. So it's a process that works. But what it make it work is the collection of the information.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Well, you told me a story earlier, Yuri, about an American general manager who, instead of just handing you a quote, asked, "What do I have to do to get us in business?" And how that question really shaped the way that you think about relationships and networking. For operations leaders who see themselves as execution people, not relationship people, why does that side matter, and how has it changed the way you do business?
This was a very interesting story, and then it's interesting that you pointed out because we have talked about a lot of things,
Yep.
but this is one of them that as a young professional, you're trying to do the job like everybody else, and there was this a gentleman with some years already, so you can tell the experience, and it was the how we make this happen. So and it was in a positive way, so not a negative connotation or anything. And what I learned out of the teams that I have been involved, out of discussing with other executives and so on, I think we we are focused or quite focused on the execute, do, but we don't discuss the how. And then we discuss the how in the wrong environment. So then we want to discuss how with 20 other people. And a quick example, so production meetings. So we don't so you can discuss, okay, yesterday we run, I don't know, 60%. And then is you can discuss what and why happened, a little bit of the issues or the top issues and so on. But in the moment that you start discussing how you are going to fix that, you are losing everybody else. So people starts going into their computers, into their phones, and so because it's not touching them, it's not relevant for them. So how is a key question, I think. So you need to understand also the basic questions, so the what, the why, when, who, with whom, and so on. But finally, how we make things happen, what we need to do, what are the steps, and then there starts the connections. So how do we change a document? Okay, then we need to so the manufacturing engineer needs to discuss with the quality engineer, and they need to get together, and that's it. And they need to discuss it. And once they discuss, then that's it. They don't need 10 other people. So for me, this was this thinking how we can make things happen. And that was what shaped my life and my world. And whenever you learn, for example, something that is so like lean manufacturing or Six Sigma, I mean, it's not rocket science, but you still need to make it happen. And then how do you make it happen? How you uh, very few companies are successful using the tools, but the tools are there. The tools were since 1950, and still not everybody is successful. But why? Because they don't think how I can make a plan, a step plan, to say this is my first step and this is the second and third. And this was so back then I was very young when I learned this to ask this question: how do we make this happen in a positive way?
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I find like a way of living and a way of relating with other people. So I am an engineer and I have my own struggles to socialize, but nevertheless I try to connect with people and say, okay, what is the? It's not only what is in for me because that's very shallow. It's how so who, who is going to get the benefit, and then if it's a common benefit, how do we get it? And
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I was just going to say, I mean, what I hear you saying there is really you're taking what happens so often in teams when they're faced with a challenging product or challenging project, rather, is they say all the reasons why it can't work. And what I hear you doing is you're kind of flipping that on its head and saying, okay, well, let's get creative and you tell me how it could work, right? Don't bring me problems. Let's brainstorm solution. And you're phrasing it in such a way that it's including people, right? You're bringing others into that effort where you're not going to them and saying, "Hey, this is how it's going to work, and this is how we're going to do it." You're asking an open-ended question and hopefully taking advantage of their knowledge, their experience, their expertise to help develop a all-inclusive solution.
absolutely. So I am myself. I am a product of globalization. So I've been in multiple countries and multiple projects, and there is smart people all over the world, and you need to include them. You need to include them, and also in every organization, from the CEO to the janitor, to the operator, to everybody, the supervisor, the warehouse clerk. Everybody has ideas because everybody has eyes, and they think and they observe, and then they suffer the problems. So how you include everybody, not to put the rocks in front of you, how you include everybody to provide solutions, to provide ideas, to make them participate on you are part of the solution, not part of the problem. So I I also say quite often, so there is two kind of people. So people that find solutions to problems, and people that finds problems to solutions. So on which side do you want to be?
My goodness, there have never been truer words spoken. Yeah, you're exactly right. Well, Yuri, once again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come share your knowledge with our audience. I know there's tons of people out there that are going to hear this, and they're going to have some takeaways that they're able to come back with to their organization and hopefully make themselves and the people around them better. So again, thank you so much for taking the time. For those of you listening, I will include Dr. Mendoza's contact information in the show notes. So his LinkedIn profile, email address. You reach out to him if you've got questions. I'm sure he'd love to take the time to talk with you and help you work through them. So again, Yuri, thanks so much for carving out the time.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, for having me. So it's been a great pleasure. So we can talk for probably for the next 3 hours. And yeah, so if somebody wants to reach out, I would love to keep contact with new people. So this is how relations happen, how knowledge is created, and I would love to learn from people and to learn from problems. Justin, again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely. And folks, if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. It really helps us get the message out so that others in the mid-market manufacturing space might also learn a little bit and hopefully bring a little bit more value to their organizations. And until next time, see you later.